Welcome to Essentially Soulful. Today we'll explore the unexpected paths that lead to extraordinary professional growth. I'm Betty, and today we're diving into a fascinating topic with someone who knows firsthand how following unconventional interests can revolutionize your career. I'm joined by my co-host, DeeAnna, a therapist whose journey from traditional practice to holistic healing will challenge everything you think you know about professional development.
Thank you, Betty. I'm excited to share my story and hopefully inspire others to trust their learning instincts, even when they seem to lead down unexpected paths.
You know, DeeAnna, we often think of professional development as this straight line. Get your degree, earn your certifications, attend the required workshops, but your experience tells a different story, doesn't it?
Absolutely. While those traditional elements are important, I've discovered that some of the most transformative moments in my career came from following what I call my professional curiosities. Those interests that initially seemed completely unrelated to my practice.
I love that term, professional curiosities. Could you share what first prompted you to step off the traditional path?
Well, it started when I found myself drawn to holistic healing practices. Initially, I felt almost embarrassed about this interest. After all, I was a traditionally trained therapist. But there was this persistent inner voice saying, explore this.
And how did your colleagues react when you started exploring these alternative approaches?
Oh, the reactions were interesting, to say the least. I got quite a few raised eyebrows and what I like to call politely skeptical responses. Some people literally gave me the crinkled nose look, as if to say, really? You're going there?
Yet you persisted. What gave you the courage to continue despite that skepticism?
You know, there's this saying that really resonates with me. Your soul wants you to learn. And that's exactly what it felt like. It wasn't about meeting external requirements anymore. It was about following an authentic calling to grow in a new direction.
You mentioned this inner calling, and it reminds me of something fascinating. You once compared professional development to a lighthouse with a Fresnel lens. Could you share that analogy with our listeners?
Yes, think of yourself as a lighthouse. The traditional professional development path keeps the basic light burning. That's your core competencies. But when you add these seemingly unrelated interests, they're like the Fresnel lens that amplifies and focuses your light in unexpected ways, making you more effective than you could have imagined.
That's such a powerful image. And speaking of amplification, you went through some additional certification processes, right? Including BCC training?
Yes, and what's interesting is that because I already had my master's degree, the BCC training only required 30 hours. But here's the key. It wasn't about the hours or the certificate. It was about how this training connected dots I didn't even know existed in my practice.
Can you give us a specific example of how these unexpected connections manifested in your work?
Of course, I had a client who was struggling with traditional talk therapy. When I integrated some holistic techniques I'd learned, particularly around energy awareness, it opened up entirely new channels of communication. Suddenly, we were making breakthroughs that hadn't been possible before.
That's fascinating. It's like you're creating a new language of healing by combining different approaches.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that I'm not alone in this. I've met other professionals who've had similar experiences. There's a tech manager I know who took coaching training and completely transformed how she leads her team.
Let's explore that example. How did coaching training, something that might seem tangential to tech management, make such an impact?
She told me that the coaching perspective helped her see team dynamics in a completely new light. Instead of just focusing on technical solutions, she started understanding the human elements that either block or enable innovation. Her team's productivity actually increased by about 30% after she implemented these new approaches.
You know what strikes me about these examples? They all seem to start with what I might call a professional intuition. That subtle feeling that there's something valuable to learn, even if it doesn't fit the traditional mold.
That's exactly it, Betty. And I think that's what makes this approach to professional development so powerful. It's not just about acquiring new skills, it's about trusting that inner compass that guides you toward what you need to learn next.
I love this idea of the inner compass, DeeAnna. but I can hear some of our listeners thinking, this sounds great in theory, but how do I actually start? How do I know which unconventional paths are worth pursuing?
That's such an important question. I always tell people to start by paying attention to what consistently catches their interest, even if it seems completely unrelated to their work. I call it the 3-time rule. If something catches your attention 3 times, it's worth exploring.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you give us an example of how this rule has worked for you or someone you know?
Sure, I actually know an architect who kept finding herself drawn to articles and videos about feng shui. At first, she dismissed it as just a casual interest. But after it kept coming up, she decided to take some courses. Now she's revolutionized her practice by incorporating these principles into her designs, and her clients absolutely love the results.
It's almost like finding your professional development secret sauce, those unique combinations that make your work distinctively valuable.
Exactly. And here's what's fascinating. When you follow these interests, you often discover that they're not really unrelated at all. They're just connecting dots that others haven't connected yet.
But let's talk about the elephant in the room, resistance. Whether it's from colleagues, supervisors, or even our own self-doubt. How do you navigate that?
The key is to start small and let the results speak for themselves. When I first began incorporating holistic practices, I didn't make a big announcement. I simply began integrating elements that I knew were safe and appropriate and documented the positive outcomes.
Sort of like creating your own evidence-based practice.
Precisely. And what's interesting is that once people see the results, the skepticism often turns to curiosity. I've had some of those same colleagues who gave me the crinkled nose look later ask me to teach them about these approaches.
That's such a powerful point about transformation. It reminds me you have this wonderful phrase about professional development being more than just checking boxes. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, while traditional continuing education requirements serve a purpose, real professional growth happens when we move beyond just meeting requirements. It's about asking yourself, what lights me up? What makes me excited to learn more? Those questions lead to genuine transformation.
I'm curious. How do you balance these unconventional interests with the need to maintain professional credibility?
It's all about integration rather than replacement. I never abandoned my foundational training, I enhanced it. Think of it like adding new instruments to an orchestra. The basic melody is still there, but now you have a richer, more nuanced sound.
That orchestra metaphor is beautiful, DeeAnna. It makes me think about what you said earlier regarding your soul wanting to learn. How do you suggest people differentiate between a passing interest and what you might call a soul-level learning opportunity?
There's usually a persistence to soul-level learning opportunities. They keep showing up, even when you try to ignore them. And there's often a physical response, maybe excitement, or that feeling of resonance in your body when something really rings true.
I imagine our listeners might be starting to reflect on their own unexplored interests. What would you say to someone who's just beginning to recognize these patterns in their own professional journey?
Start keeping what I call a curiosity journal. Write down what consistently draws your attention, what energizes you, what makes you want to learn more. And most importantly, don't judge these interests. Sometimes what seems most irrelevant turns out to be most transformative.
That's such practical advice. And speaking of practical, could you share some specific first steps for someone who's identified an unconventional interest they want to explore professionally?
First, research how others might be combining similar interests with their profession. You'd be surprised how many unique combinations exist. Second, look for small ways to experiment with these interests in your current role. And third, find or create a supportive community of other professionals who are also exploring unconventional paths.
You know what I find particularly powerful about your approach? It's not just about professional development. It seems to lead to a kind of wholeness where your work becomes more aligned with who you are as a person.
Yes, that's exactly it. When we integrate these seemingly unrelated interests, we're not just becoming better professionals, we're becoming more authentic versions of ourselves. And that authenticity translates into more meaningful work and deeper connections with clients or colleagues.
As we start wrapping up, I'd love to hear what you see as the future of professional development. Are we moving toward a more integrated, personalized approach?
I believe we are. The traditional one-size-fits-all approach to professional development is already showing its limitations. The future belongs to those who can weave together diverse knowledge and experiences in unique ways. It's about creating your own professional development ecosystem rather than following a predetermined path.
What a perfect way to bring our conversation full circle. Before we close, what's one final piece of advice you'd like to share with our listeners?
Trust your instincts about what you need to learn, even if it doesn't make sense to others at first. Remember the lighthouse analogy. Your unique combination of interests and skills is what makes your professional light shine in a way that no one else's can. And I'll leave additional information in the show notes.
Thank you, DeeAnna, for sharing your insights and encouraging us all to embrace our unique professional journeys. To our listeners, remember, your next transformative professional breakthrough might come from the most unexpected place. Keep exploring, keep growing, and most importantly, keep trusting your inner compass.